I knew something was wrong long before the basement door slammed shut behind me. It wasn't a sudden shift, not an overnight change in my husband or his mother. It was small things, quiet things, the kinds of details that only someone living inside the tension could feel. A pause before answering me. A look they shared when they thought I wasn't watching. Their voices stopped the moment I walked into the room. None of it was loud, but all of it was sharp. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't make a scene. I just watched. 3 weeks before everything happened, I installed a camera in the basement stairwell. Not because I feared the basement, but because something in me knew the danger would come from above. I couldn't have explained it, not even to myself. It was the kind of instinct you don't question when your home stops feeling like a home. My husband, Mark, had been growing more unpredictable. He spoke less. He slept in bursts. And every time his mother visited, he followed her around like he needed permission to breathe. She whispered into him, fed him ideas, stirred him like a pot she'd owned her entire life. I was never part of the recipe. Just something to be added or removed. The day it happened, the house was too quiet. That was my first warning. Silence in a place that had been buzzing with tension felt unnatural, like the air was waiting. Mark didn't speak to me that morning. He didn't even look at me. His mother arrived just after noon, letting herself in, her smile too practiced, her voice too smooth. I heard them in the kitchen, their tones low and steady, as if discussing a chore. I stepped closer, but they stopped talking the second they sensed me. I didn't ask. I didn't push. Around dusk, Mark called me downstairs. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm someone wears right before they do something irreversible. I need you to see something, he said, already moving toward the basement door. His mother stood behind him, her hands folded, her eyes flat. I didn't move at first. Something in my body reacted before my mind did. Cold ran up my spine, not panic cold. The kind that tells you the moment has already been chosen for you. When I stepped toward the stairs, Mark moved quickly. The push wasn't hard. It didn't need to be. I lost my footing, grabbed the railing, and before I could climb back up, he slammed the door. The lock clicked. His mother's voice murmured something behind it, muffled and satisfied. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They acted like they were closing a cabinet. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I stood still in the dark basement, breathing slowly, letting my eyes adjust. Letting the camera overhead capture everything. Knew this moment was coming. And I knew I wasn't the only one watching. The basement wasn't new to me. I had spent months organizing it, cleaning it, turning it into something usable. I knew every corner, every loose board, every echo. But that night, it felt different. Hollow, like the air itself understood what had just happened. I didn't call out to them. They expected panic, hysteria, bargaining. They wanted me loud. They wanted me desperate. That's how people like them justify what they're about to do next. Instead, I sat on the bottom step and listened. Above me, their footsteps moved slowly, confidently. Mark's mother spoke first, calm, steady, almost pleased. See? She won't fight. I told you she wouldn't. Mark said nothing. His silence told me everything. He wasn't conflicted. He wasn't scared. He had already chosen his side long before this door ever closed. They walked away. The house settled into quiet again, but the quiet was different now. It was ownership, control, finality. I stood and walked deeper into the basement, toward the small metal shelf where I had hidden the receiver for the stairwell camera. It was still blinking, still recording, still mine. That camera was my eyes in the world above, and soon, it would be the police's too. I checked the time on my phone. The moment the door slammed, I knew calling the police from down there would be pointless. The signal was weak. But I didn't need it. I had already told my neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, to call the police if she didn't see my kitchen lights on by 9 p.m. She thought it was a simple safety check. She didn't know she was about to save my life. The hours dragged, but I felt none of the panic they expected. I kept replaying the conversation I'd overheard 2 nights earlier, the one that had made me install a second hidden recorder, the one in Mark's office. They thought I was asleep when they discussed getting me out of the way for a while. They didn't specify how long a while would be. They didn't need to. Their tone said everything. I waited in the basement with my back against the wall, listening for any sign they were coming down again. They didn't. They moved around the house freely, their voices occasionally drifting through the vents. They talked about me in the past tense. She won't be a problem anymore, his mother said. She had calmed down after a few days, Mark replied. She has to. Or, his mother didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Around 8:45, I heard movement outside the house. A faint knock at the front door. My neighbor's voice. Polite, cautious. Something inside me loosened, Mark answered, his tone forced and cheerful. His mother stayed silent. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. The hesitation in his voice, the lie he couldn't shape correctly. The conversation ended quickly, and then footsteps. Harder. Faster. Not theirs. Police. The house erupted with voices. I stayed still, waiting for the lock to break, waiting for the truth to split open. When the basement door finally swung wide, the first thing the officers saw wasn't me. It was the camera blinking above my head, still recording the entire nightmare. The officers didn't step inside right away. They froze, their eyes flicking from me to the camera, then back to me again. It took one of them a full second to understand why there was a recorder pointed at the stairwell, why I didn't look surprised, or frightened, or even relieved. I just stood there, calm, steady, exactly the opposite of what Mark and his mother had been telling people about me for months. One officer finally spoke. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "No," I said. "Just locked in." It was the simplicity of the answer that made him tense. People who are truly unstable ramble. They explain too much. They cling. My quietness disturbed him more than any panic could have. Behind him, I could hear Mark yelling from the living room. "She's lying. She's doing this for attention. She was in the basement by choice." His mother added her own theatrics, voice trembling with fake fear. "She's unpredictable. We were trying to help her. She does things like this." The officer closest to me didn't move. He looked at the lock, heavy silver, newly installed. Then, at the bolts on the doorframe. Then back at my face. "Who locked you in?" he asked. I didn't point. I didn't accuse. I didn't need drama. Check the camera feed. That was all. They led me upstairs carefully, as if expecting me to collapse. But I walked past them with a steady back and clear eyes. I heard one whisper to the other, "She's not acting like someone unstable." No anger. No hysteria. Just a cold, grounded understanding of what had been done to me. The living room was a mess. Mark's mother clutched her chest, ironic, given how often she liked to fake health issues, and Mark paced like a cornered animal. He stopped when he saw me. "Why didn't you just say something? You didn't have to make a scene." I met his eyes. "You locked me in a basement. That's not what happened," he shouted, turning to the officers. "She's been paranoid lately. She moved things around the house and accused us. She's been recording us without our consent." His voice cracked at that last part. The slip told me the truth. He wasn't worried about my safety. He was worried about what I had recorded. The officers separated us, questioning us in different rooms. I sat on the couch, hands folded, answering their questions with calm clarity. Meanwhile, through the walls, I heard Mark stumbling through his lies. His mother chimed in, twisting stories, inventing scenarios, trying to paint me as unstable. They had rehearsed this narrative for weeks, but they didn't know what was coming. After interviewing all three of us, the lead officer returned. "Ma'am, we'd like to review your camera footage." "All of it." I nodded and unlocked my phone. The files were already queued. The officers gathered around as the recordings played. The conversations between Mark and his mother, the plan to isolate me. The way they talked about me like a problem, to be contained. Silence settled over the room, But it wasn't my silence. It was theirs, their plans, their voices, their cruelty, all echoing through the speakers. When the last clip ended, the lead officer straightened. "Ma'am, we need you to step outside with us." He didn't say why. He didn't need to, because behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of handcuffs. The cold air outside felt sharper than usual, almost cleansing, as if the world itself was acknowledging what had just happened. I stood on the porch while the officers moved in and out of the house, their radios crackling with quiet urgency. The lead officer stayed beside me, keeping his tone level and factual. But even he couldn't hide the shift in how he now saw me. Not as a victim of confusion, not as a fragile woman, but as someone who had been trapped deliberately. Inside, Mark's voice had lost its confident edge. The handcuffs rattled each time he jerked against them, insisting that the officers didn't understand, that it was all a misunderstanding, that marriage gets complicated, that she overreacts. His mother's voice was sharper, thinner, cutting through him like a blade. She blamed me, blamed the officers, blamed the cameras, blamed anyone except herself. The woman who had tried so hard to control every piece of my life was suddenly powerless, and she didn't know how to exist in that state. The lead officer spoke quietly. "You handled yourself well, ma'am. Most people panic in situations like that." "I stopped panicking weeks ago," I said. That seemed to affect him more deeply than anything else. He nodded, almost with respect. Another officer approached. "We're sending both in for evaluation and holding them until further notice. There's enough evidence to proceed formally." "Good," I said, not out of vindictiveness, but out of a simple truth. I didn't want this to happen to me or anyone else again. They walked Mark past me first. His eyes were wild, desperate, searching my face for some trace of weakness he could still manipulate. "Why are you doing this?" he hissed. "You're blowing everything out of proportion." I didn't flinch. "You locked me in a basement. That's not what you planned it with your mother." He stopped talking. He couldn't rewrite this moment. Not with everyone watching. Not with the cameras capturing the truth so cleanly that even he couldn't deny it. His mother followed behind him, still spitting accusations at the officers. When she passed me, she tried to sneer, but her face trembled. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Families don't forgive." "I'm not the one who broke the family," I answered quietly. The officers placed both of them in separate cars. The slamming doors echoed across the street. My neighbor, the same one who had called the police, stepped toward me cautiously. She didn't ask what happened. She already understood enough. Instead, she handed me a bottle of water and said, "You held yourself together." I had no other choice. She nodded. "You do now." For the first time in months, I realized I could breathe without feeling watched. No footsteps above me. No whispered conversations. No locks clicking behind my back. The lead officer returned with paperwork. "We'll file the full report. You'll be contacted by domestic crimes, and you'll have the right to pursue charges, protection orders, whatever you need." I took the clipboard. My hand didn't shake. "What happens next?" I asked. He didn't answer with false comfort. He answered with certainty. "Next," he said, "you reclaim everything they tried to take from you." His words settled over me like armor. And for the first time, I knew he was right. The house was silent when the police cars finally disappeared down the road, their lights fading into the dark. I stood in the doorway, staring into the place that had been both my home and my cage. The air felt different now, lighter, but beneath that relief was something steadier, stronger resolve. I stepped inside slowly, taking in the details I had been too afraid to look at before. The basement door still hung slightly open from when the officers forced it. My husband's laptop sat on the kitchen counter, beside the notebook his mother used to track every movement I made. They had left behind all their tools, the evidence of who they were when no one else watched. For once, I didn't avert my eyes. I gathered the cameras, the memory cards, and the audio recordings I'd hidden throughout the house. When I placed them neatly on the table, I realized how much those small devices had saved me. Without them, I would still be locked underground, pleading for someone to believe me. My neighbor knocked once and stepped inside. "I didn't want you to be alone," she said, her voice gentle but grounded. "I'm not sure what happens now," I admitted. "You heal," she said, "and you make sure they can't come back." I sat at the table. The footage spread out before me, and for the first time, I allowed myself to replay a few clips, not out of morbid curiosity, but to confirm I hadn't imagined any of it. There they were, Mark and his mother whispering in the hallway, her instructing him to keep me contained, him testing the basement lock, both of them debating how long it would take before I broke. My neighbor watched my face carefully. This wasn't a moment of anger. This was planned. "Yes," I said, and they needed me to be the unstable one. But they had underestimated the one thing that destroyed their scheme, my awareness. I spent the next hour giving myself order where there had only been chaos. I changed the locks. I moved their belongings into boxes and set them in the garage. I called a lawyer, one recommended by domestic crime specialists, and arranged a meeting first thing in the morning. I forwarded the footage to the investigator the police assigned. Everything they tried to bury me under, I turned into evidence. Later, when the house was quiet again, I walked to the basement door. I pulled it shut and locked it from the outside. The click echoed differently tonight. It wasn't fear. It was closure. Standing in the hallway, I realized something. They hadn't just tried to trap me physically. They had tried to erase my voice. But I had my voice now. And I had proof. And I had a future they no longer controlled. My neighbor lingered before leaving. "You look stronger," she said. "I am," I answered. "And I'm not done." She gave a small nod. "Good, because the next steps are going to change everything." I knew she was right. What came next wouldn't just protect me. It would expose them completely.